Hey there, guys. This is Hendrik Taladar for thematania.com, and this is the 11th episode of the Water Cooler, our podcast series. Before we get started, about 11 weeks ago, we started the podcast, and something noticeable was not included. We did not have an iTunes or a Stitcher feed for our audio download of the podcast. The only way you could get the podcast was through YouTube. As of this episode, or very soon after this episode, if it's not done, we will have our entire back catalog available through iTunes and Stitcher, but it is also dependent on how soon iTunes and Stitcher process our applications. But those will be coming in the next week, if not two. So with that said, let us introduce our co-host today, Tegaminis.
Hey.
And joining us for this episode, where we're going to talk all about business in video games and video game coverage, is the current Chief of Operations for thematania.com, Marc Scaurus.
Hello.
So, before we really get into the nitty-gritty, Marc, what have you been playing lately?
Destiny.
How are you liking that game? Because that is not a PC game.
It is not a PC game. I think Teg and I agree on this. It probably will be at some point.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it's,
almost definitely.
It's tremendous. It's very good.
Would you compare it to a potential console seller to convince people, like, this is a game that people would want to buy an Xbox One or PlayStation 4 for? Or is it just better, like, those consoles still suck, there's not really that many games, I'll just stay to my Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3?
I think because it's slated to launch in September, so it's a little bit before the holiday sales window that a lot of game companies target. I still think, though, that it's going to get a lot of hype, and it's a very, very solid game from what you can tell from like the alpha and the beta so far. I think it'll sell some consoles. The thing with it, though, is it's not console specific, so it will be out on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So it's not like the killer app for any one console. And it's also coming out for 360 and PS3. And Bungie just said that you will be able to basically your characters that you level if you play on a 360 or PS3 will be available to you on the next gen console if and when you should get one. So it's not really...
That's a very nice gesture, because you don't see a lot of game companies do that.
Yeah, and I think that comes from the fact that they're a truly third-party entity for the first time, because Bungie was owned by Microsoft. This is their first game after that split, so I think they've really got the customer in mind. So you can go out and get Destiny on your PS3 or Xbox 360, play, and then when the holidays roll around and you feel like treating yourself, you can get a next-gen console and you haven't lost anything. So, I mean, in that regard, I don't really think it's going to sell a whole lot of consoles, but it's just so pretty on the next-gen consoles. Well, we haven't seen it on Xbox One. On PS4, anyways, it's really pretty. And
it is.
And what sort of game do you compare it to? Because a lot of people are saying it's Borderlands, but with some MMO aspect.
It's Halo.
It's Halo, but with Borderlands aspects.
Yes to all of that. Basically, it feels very Halo-ish. Like, even just the running, like the way that your weapon bobs, the way that you jump, everything feels very Halo. It's got definite Borderlands aspects because you're looting and you're leveling and you're investing in talents and stuff. And then it's also pretty social, too, because they've got a hub, the tower, that you can run around and there's other people everywhere. When you're out in the world, it's a little bit less hectic. So, like, the most I've seen so far is, like, 6 people around me. And they tend to phase in and out kind of at random. Like, I don't really know what determines that.
That's actually really interesting. They have kind of a central matchmaking server that can tell where everybody is in the game, and then it matches people of similar level to you based on where you are and where they are and what level they are. That's what they've said anyway.
That's what they say, but I don't think that's necessarily true because I popped into the Explore map just this morning, and I'm level 8 on one of my characters, which is the beta cap. So I jump in there, and there was like 2 level 2s right next to me. So
I think that maybe like the level range is wider than the beta cap, maybe, where it's like the level range is like within 5 levels or something, within 10 levels, something like that. You know,
it could be, but I also think that explore map is kind of it's a big map. Like there's a lot of areas to it, so you're not gonna like when you get into different areas. Like there's no set in stone like zone line really, not like World of Warcraft where you go from zone to zone and it's very obviously different maps and stuff. It's all kind of seamless, but like enemies will be higher level over here, in like the rocket yard or whatever it's called, than there are right at the beginning when you zone into the map. So I think maybe that's what happened, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Tech, what about you? What have you been playing as of late?
So I played some Destiny with Mark. He's played it more than I have, but I jumped in and we played some stuff, and it was pretty enjoyable, and I'm digging it. I don't know if I'll buy it at launch, but it all depends on how things roll around. But it's definitely a game to keep an eye on. And then besides that, Warframe Update 14 dropped. I've been playing that. Actually, I kind of dig the changes that they made. The menu stuff is kind of annoying in having your guy stand in front of the menu on certain angles, which is just like, Jesus.
So they're trying to make it so you still see your character when you're
doing
the menu?
Yeah, they're trying to make it more
immersive.
Yeah, they're trying to make it a more immersive sort of experience.
Do you think that's done to appease console users on like the PlayStation 4? Or do you think it's more of this is a silly art design UI approach?
I think that this has been on its way for a while, because like they've been gradually moving towards this more immersive AI as the game has progressed. So this isn't really that big of a shock. I don't think it's console specific. I think it's just this is what they've been moving towards, and they finally made the step, right? And,
okay.
But they are going to need to implement some like just not having your character stand in front of the fucking menu, because it gets really, really aggravating.
Okay.
And then besides that, a really old horror shooter adventure game called Realms of the Haunting, which is...
You played Slender, too.
Oh my god, don't even remind me.
You played Slender. Jesus. That game looked amazing.
I played it for an hour. Okay, so Slender, I'll talk about it for like 1 minute. So here we go, 1 minute. Slender is the worst horror game that I have ever played in my entire life. It is pure lizard brain. When you see the Slender Man, you turn around and run the other way. And it is... It's just find these random items in this open environment, and then walk to the level exit, or have the Slender Man grab you, or whatever. It was a thoroughly painful and slogging and awful experience, and I only played like the first 2 levels. Like,
you just don't like games. That's all. It's a fun game. You just don't appreciate games.
It's a fun game if like you enjoy really shitty horror games, or like.
Okay, but how is
really
that different
bad.
than Outlast? Because Outlast is a very good horror game, I think. How's it any different than Outlast?
You're lying.
I love Outlast. Outlast is tremendous. The first time you play it.
Okay. I think you're just making that shit up. Like, you can't honestly think that.
I love Outlast. Outlast is great.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. It's just
what have you been playing, Hendrik?
I have basically not played... Oh, I've played some games. There's a few random games. I started up Dawn of War 2 for the first time in forever. But mostly I've been focusing on either doing work or Alliance Tournament 12 practices or video editing for TMC, along with some other projects I'm doing for my own real life businesses and stuff.
You're going to be in the Alliance Tournament? You're going to be participating?
I'm on the practice team at least right now. I don't think we have a set lineup. If I get in, I'd probably most likely be in just because there was no one else to fill that position. That's basically how I think it's going to end up
Wow,
playing, which I'm totally fine with.
So you're like I guess we have to bring him guy?
I'm like the bench warmer, basically, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not really try hard about Alliance Tournament. I want our guys to do really well. Waffles did really well last year. He took 16th in her first go of the tournament, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. And we beat some former champions and some former high level groups, so we've done pretty well. Anyway, so this week's discussion, as I mentioned at the start of the show, is quote unquote serious business, or the nitty gritty business of how we as a news organization and I guess a money making business, because we actually do make money as a small business, technically, how that all works, because there was a slew of articles by GammaSutra.com as well as Eurogamer about the ethics behind quote-unquote pay-for-play, or payola, in which, and those who don't know, payola was a term used ages ago in the days of radio, where a radio station was paid to play a song. However, they didn't explicitly state that they were paid to play that song. This became determined illegal, and they would have to actually disclose, hey, I was paid by, if this K-Rock, whatever their station ID or whatever, decided, hey, we were paid by Sony Entertainment or Sony Music Group to play insert song, they have to state that, or explicitly state that that was the business transaction. However, the reason why we're bringing this up is a lot of YouTubers have been supposedly and allegedly, and some of them are admitting to it, being paid, admitted to have being paid to favorably or to focus on promoting a certain game. So primarily, the most prime example that came out this past week was the YouTube channel, the Yogscast, announced that they have a new deal system with developers called Yog Discovery, in which the main channel, which has over 7 million subscribers on YouTube, will take a small share of the sales for a game that they agreed to promote through this Yog Discovery. And this was stated because it was so that they could focus on indie games without taking a quote-unquote big risk on the channel's part, so that they wouldn't feel obligated to focus on doing, say, a Battlefield game by EA or whatever, but they could do a game like Space Engineers, and they would make roughly the same money. And when they do the Battlefield game, they're doing it of their own. They're not being paid by EA to do it, but there's a risk involved, according to them. This also comes into play when several other channels started talking about things. Most specifically, Total Biscuit, who is a YouTube pundit of sorts, or a quote-unquote journalist, because he does sometimes talk about himself as a journalist, though he also at times doesn't refer to himself as a journalist, stated that he had been approached to be paid $2,000 to do a single video promoting or highlighting a specific game that was in competition with Hearthstone. He released the email, and he took out the company's name out of respect for them. And he had always been of the habit of explicitly stating that he is doing a promotional video. And he and some others have stated that this is a problem, and this is something we should probably discuss as a business, because there are some guidelines that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission in the United States, and several other guidelines across European nations that reflect some of these FTC guidelines, need to be followed and are potentially causes for investigations to be done.
So I have a quick question. How familiar are you with the radio analogy that you presented at the beginning?
I'm not overly familiar.
Okay.
But I will double check.
Oh, because I'm genuinely just curious, because
so payola, according to Wikipedia, as I just pulled this up, in the music industry is the illegal practice of payment or other inducement by record companies for the broadcast of recordings on music radio in which the song is presented as being part of the normal day's broadcast. Under U.S. Law 47 U.S.C. 317, a radio station can play a specific song in exchange for money, but this must be disclosed on air as being sponsored airtime. And and that play of the song should not be counted as quote-unquote regular airplay.
So, I'm just going to go ahead and wade into here. The relevant FTC regulation for video games is disclosure of material connections. And the line that directly pertains to us is when there exists a connection between the product and the person that's doing something with the product, and the connection is not reasonably expected by the audience, then you need to disclose it. And the example that they give is, let's say that you're running a blog, right? Just like a personal blog, and then you develop a reputation for honesty or whatever. It's your personal blog. People like it. And then Sony approaches you and says, we're going to give you a PS4 if you write about it on your blog. And so they do. The FTC recommends that you disclose it. So that is the particular regulation that pertains to this in regards to video games, right? I'm of the mind that it's generally a good idea to disclose any sort of unusual relationships with a company. For example, the aforementioned Sony giving you a PS4. Like, if we were ever given a console by Sony, which we never will, probably, we would most likely disclose that, right? Or if we were given a collector's edition for a game or something like that that is above and beyond what would be reasonably expected from a game journalist website, right? Now, in the same sense that movie critics don't put at the bottom of their movie reviews that they attended a pre-screening of a movie, or book reviewers don't put... Well, sometimes they do. But book reviewers don't generally put this book was given to us by the publisher. I think that the FTC regulation states that if it's unusual, if it's not expected by the audience, then it really needs to be disclosed. So while it's a good idea to disclose it, it's not really necessary to disclose if you're given a preview or review copy of a game, just because at least if you're like a game journalist website, right? Like Joystick or Polygon. I mean, Joystick and Polygon both say that they get review copies. They detail how they got the review copies. Kotaku and IGN don't. It's a wide spectrum of how these sites actually do this. But
well, I think the main question of this whole thing boils down to it's a question of trust versus expectation, right? Like the whole guideline really hinges on the phrase expectation, like a realistic expectation or a reasonable expectation of, this not usually happening or this does usually happen. So some of the other examples that they give in the regulation or the guidelines is, say you see Kobe Bryant in a Nike commercial. Obviously, they don't need to disclose that he's being paid to appear in this commercial because, like, come on, who doesn't think that he like that's just a thing that happens, right? And where it gets murky, not so much with written journalism or written media coverage, however you want to call it, but with the YouTube question is a lot of those channels they're meant for entertainment, right? And so, I mean, is it really reasonable to expect that they weren't given a review copy or that they're not doing this video on behalf of somebody else? Like, they're quite clearly, they're doing this, they're doing it for money, and they're doing it for entertainment purposes. So that's where everything kind of starts to get into a matter of opinion. And, like, Murph's opinion is generally that you don't have to disclose that if you don't want to.
For us, for like TMC, if we're writing a review, I don't think that it's really necessary. I mean, it may be a good idea. We may implement this in the future, but I don't think it's really necessary for us to disclose that we got a copy from the developer or the publisher, because they tend to just throw those copies out. Like I have a bunch of keys just sitting in my TMC inbox from developers that just said just put out like a press blast and just gave me a key for no reason, right? But for YouTubers and stuff, I think that if it's not a specific like review oriented brand, like Yogscast, right? they're kind of like a Let's Play group, right? They're not really a review-oriented organization. So I think that if they're doing this sort of thing where they're accepting money, they should, or not accepting money, but accepting review copies and stuff, they should maybe disclose that. But like if Total Biscuit,
see, I'm actually of the opposite opinion. Like, people that are doing this for entertainment reasons, and they're quite obviously doing it for entertainment reasons, and whatever obvious is obviously a matter of debate. But for instance, Yogscast, like, I wouldn't assume that they are, they don't participate in what you might call journalistic ethics. Like, they don't have to. They're there to entertain you, and they're there to make money. So if they're being paid, or if they're given review copies or whatever, I don't really think that's a big deal. Where I think it is a big deal are people who are advising, essentially, their readers and their consumers, whether or not a game is good. I think it's, even if it is the norm, even if every single review you do is by review code, which the big sites, that's how it is, you should still disclose that. I mean, you can disclose it in a single line, whether it's spoken or written, like a video or on a web page. It doesn't cost you anything, and it just lets people know, like, hey, I got this for free. It's a $60 game. I think it's all right. I think maybe if I had paid $60 for it, you know, and you let that weigh into people's opinion of the game. But that kind of goes back to the whole, like, reviewing is just getting kind of ridiculous anyways. But
yeah, like you mentioned the whole $60 thing. One thing that, like, we never do on TMC is mention the price of a game, right? Unless, I guess we would if it's exorbitant, right? Like if a $300 game comes out and we review it or whatever, we'll obviously disclose that we got a copy if they gave us one, and then we'll probably mention that it's like ludicrously expensive, right? But in general, there's a sort of line between consumer criticism and actual criticism, I'd say, is that one is sort of consumer advocacy, where it's, are you getting the best bang for your buck, right? It's like when reading a review for, like, different brands of grape nuts or something, right? Like, which is the best brand of cereal for you to buy? But with games, because games are art and they're kind of murky in terms of how they're consumer-driven, how they're a consumer-driven form or how they're an art-driven form. Yeah.
I think those are two different things. Like, reviews and criticism are, I mean,
I think
to me, they strike me as two different words to indicate two different approaches to more or less the same content. Because you're still, like, you're reviewing or critiquing a game. You're talking about a game.
Yes.
I think those two words can be used to describe the way that you're approaching it. Like, a review is this game any good? You know, a critique is these are, you know, it made me feel things. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not an art critic or a book critic or a movie critic, but, you know, like, they just indicate to me that you're approaching it from two different angles. I think the real point of this whole debate, though, like, the reason that there's this big, I don't even know if it's a big uproar anymore, but, like, the reason that there's an issue is, it doesn't have anything to do with review copies. Like, we've kind of gotten off track. It has to do with, and in the industry, they're called influencers. They're not called, like, media or anything like that. They're called influencers. And it's about influencers being paid directly by the publisher or developer to favorably cover their product.
Yes.
And that is
scummy as fuck.
I don't see, and it's tough, right? Because we're talking about business. You're talking about making money. You're talking about these YouTube channels that have just inordinate reach. I mean, okay, so you give Total Biscuit $2,000 to talk about the good things in your game. Or you can spend, like, untold tens of thousands of dollars trying to place a spot on a cable channel that will reach a similar audience, like a similar, you know, demographic size. Like, that's bang for your buck from a publisher perspective. So I don't really blame any of the companies trying to do that, because it's very effective. It gets it in front of people who are interested in video games. And, you know, there's been countless articles and interviews given where developers say things like, you know, hey, once Total Biscuit got a hold of my game and did a WTF is on it, my sales shot through the roof. You know, it's similar to like a Steam sale effect, you know. So it's tough on a developer or publisher. Like, I don't think it's on them to, there should be no onus placed on them, and I don't think anybody really has. But, you know, calling it a scummy practice, like from their point of view, I don't think it is. Like, that's just good business. You're trying to get this thing out in front of people who care. Where it does get, you know, again, murky is the other side of the equation, the person doing the coverage. If they don't disclose the fact that they were paid, you know, whatever, to talk about this game, you could see people going out and be like, oh, wow, that game looks really cool. Total Biscuit did a video on it. It's awesome. I'm going to go buy it. And then it's a flaming heap of junk, you know, and that's not a good situation for anybody.
So for Total Biscuit's situation, because we seem to be focusing on him for the moment, he explicitly states, generally in the comment description, or the video description, that it's the video that he puts out is a form of promotion that he was paid for. So I believe he did one with MechWarrior Online with PGI, though I'm not 100% certain. I'm just saying that might have been one, if I recall correctly. But now he's saying that, now that he actually read up on the whole situation, there's all this discussion about it, he is going to be more proactive in actually doing it. So he's going to put like a footage roll or some sort of like announcement in the start of the video saying, this is I was contacted by X developer. They want me to do this video highlighting their game. They paid me to do this, so take it as you will. That's perfectly acceptable, and I think that's something that any journalist should do. Now, what's kind of interesting, though, is Total Biscuit is on a multi-channel network, an MCN on YouTube, which is basically a collection of different YouTube channels working together, usually with an umbrella company watching out for them. And this company is called Polaris, who are actually owned by Maker Studios, who are in turn owned by Disney. Now, Polaris has their own daily news show called The Daily Bite. Lately, however, at the beginning of their show, they've been promoting and saying, this episode has been paid for by, insert this game. And specifically, they're talking about Smite, which is a MOBA game that they also did a highlight video and featured a lot of their dudes on, so it was part of a marketing campaign, if you will. For them to do that on a news show, I think is a problem, because you then get into the territory of, what if something bad happens or some bad news comes out about Hi-Res Studios, the makers of Smite? What if there's a controversy over Smite? Daily Bite may not state it, and that would be a conflict of interest because of that situation and the business practice and business deal they have going forward.
I think it'd be more of a conflict of interest if they covered the topic and then downplayed it. Like, if they just ignore it. That's what I was getting at. Like, you look at cable news, and you look at cable news. Everything's paid for by somebody, right? Everybody, those, Wolf Blitzer needs his money. He needs
NBC,
his.
For a while, NBC or MSNBC was owned by General Electric. Now they're owned by Comcast.
Right. So I mean, like, you see, for instance, you're watching, Anderson Cooper, and cuts to commercial, and it's like, this is brought to you by Ford. And turns out, like, Ford had a massive recall, and, like, all their cars are on fire or something right now. Like, him not covering that, I don't think is necessarily a conflict of interest. It depends on the format of his show. Like, is it relevant to what his show does?
Yeah, if he's doing a late night talk show, like he does, or like what Larry King did, potentially that's not really a thing, because their episode that night could be focusing on, hey, we're talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, rather than talking about the Ford issue. However, part of journalistic ethics and integrity, CNN in general trying to downplay it is morally wrong, and it's unethical
if they
according
did
to
that,
journalistic
again,
standards. Now, however,
right.
in the United States, we also like to point and laugh at people like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all these large cable companies, because all of them break moral or ethical standards for journalism. It is rampant.
Right, and I think that the heart of that issue is just the fact that like straight journalism, like good journalism, is 9 times out of 10 pretty boring.
Yes.
It doesn't sell anything. It doesn't make any money. That's why newspapers are going under left and right. That's why the cable news companies have inexorably shifted towards this like entertainment slant.
People like Nancy Grace continually appear on air despite saying hilariously questionable things, such
I just look at how long Glenn Beck had a show.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, he left of his own accord, I believe, but yeah.
Sure. But yeah, so I mean, like, that's the problem with it. And the problem in general, I mean, like, if you really, really want to step back and look at it, it's just that at a certain point it becomes exceedingly difficult to remain honest and still make money. That's just the sad fact of the matter. It's probably why we don't make any money at TMC.
What can I say? I'm too honest.
We're the most honest corner of the internet. You heard it here first.
So,
brought to you by
getting back to YouTube. And I apologize for cutting your joke off, Mark. But getting back to YouTube, in one of the Gama Sutra articles, they investigated and discussed the practice of being paid, or the willingness to being paid to promote a certain game. And they kind of broke up the YouTube people that they talked to in 2 demographics. One of them was people with less than 5,000 subscribers, which TMC would fall under, and people with more than 5,000 subscribers, which, would be people like Yogscast, Total Biscuit, all those. In the less than 5,000 subscribers category, 98% of the people interviewed stated they would not, or they have never received money directly or indirectly from a game developer or publisher for recording videos of their games. However, once you got past that 5,000 marker in subscribers, that number of people saying no dropped by about 30%. A third of the YouTubers stated, "Oh yeah, we're totally fine, and we've totally taken money from these developers promoting their games." Now, you have to come down to the issue of, again, are these review channels, are these critic channels, are these people who are giving you a consumer-friendly advice thing, like, hey, this game is really good, you should buy it, oh, but by the way, there's all these shitty little bugs? Or are they going, it's a good game, I was paid to review it, it's not too good, I mean, whatever, and, move on?
I mean, that's the real point of the issue, right? Like, the poll that Gallagher did, I don't believe was too specific, probably because I don't know. I'm not a big YouTube viewer, so I don't know how many channels there are that are over 5,000 subscribers and that also portray themselves with some journalistic integrity. Like, I don't know how big that sample size is.
Again, like I said, Total Biscuit sometimes refers to himself as a journalist. I know Angry Joe from Angry Joe Show specifically tries to call himself a journalist at times. And they also advocate for pro-consumer practices by the games companies. If there's a consumer issue, an issue where it negatively impacts the consumer, they're very quick to sound off on it. However, in both their cases, they've also, again, like I said, taken money from developers to promote a game. I remember specifically that they both did like a live stream or some sort of content regarding MechWarrior Online and some other games. And in the case of MechWarrior Online, if my memory is correct, MechWarrior Online has acted fairly anti-consumer in some of the practices they as a company have done, in just how they stated and behaved in certain ways.
So, to wade back into this, I think that to go back to this, Mark was saying that we can't really fault companies for trying to approach these people that have such wide reach, and I can't really fault them for doing it, but I do think that it's at least unethical for the person to accept that without disclosing it. In the same sense that, like, if you're presenting something that is a commercial and you're presenting it as a not a commercial, right? Like, let's say you watch, like he mentioned, Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant endorses some sneakers for a commercial, right? You don't really need to disclose that because it's very obviously a commercial, right? But let's say that you're watching some news program and, I don't know, Cooper Anderson, is that his name? Anderson Cooper.
Same. It's the same both ways. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Anderson Cooper, right? He starts ranting about something that he really likes, and then it's later disclosed, like on his news program, right? And then it's later disclosed that he received money from that company. I mean, not that he would, but just as an example, because he's the only guy I can think of. That's unethical, like, because it's showing a commercial as non-commercial, right? Like, it's presenting a paid advertisement or endorsement as sort of a legitimate viewpoint, as a journalistic viewpoint, and I think that is wildly unethical to do. If you're Yogscast or whatever, I mean, Yogscast just kind of sucks in general, so I don't really give a shit about them.
Well, it's not that you should care about what they specifically are doing. It's the overarching issue of they present themselves as a Let's Play or entertainment channel, which is fine. But they've also, on one of their subsidiary channels, because they own a ton of different other YouTube channels under their umbrella group, run a news show.
Yes, and
this is where it becomes an issue of, okay, where does your agreement with X developer have an influence where you positive, like, if you say anything positive about it, is now taken as, well, you could point to that as they paid you to say this.
Yes, and it kind of...
So the other thing is the way that most of these kind of like network deals work, and it's not specific to YouTube either. Like, there's the Gamer Network, which is like Eurogamer, US Gamer, Rock Paper Shotgun's a part of it. There's a bunch of different entities under this umbrella, and what that umbrella is for is not so much managing any individual outlet or YouTube channel or whatever. They're there to it's actually kind of helpful in that it divorces the what you would call the editorial concern of that outlet from advertising concerns. So you have a staff of people that handle the advertising. They put the ads on your channel, like they arrange all the business stuff, and the people on air or writing don't have to know any of that. Like, they shouldn't know really any of that. So, like, obviously I don't know the specifics of this particular example, but it would be my guess that multi-channel network does just that. They're the ones that go out and get the ad deals, and they get the advertisement money flowing, and they have no real connection on like a working basis.
Well, okay,
with
so
editorial.
In the case of Polaris, again, this is just from public statements made by various people under their network. In the case of a guy named Wow Krendor, he explicitly stated that he was whoever owns the movie license to the Hobbit franchise. I think it's Warner Brothers or whoever owns. It had something to do with the Lego Hobbit movie. And basically, those people contacted Polaris and said, "Hey, we want one of your guys to do this because we want the free we want the discount advertisement to a lot of people that would be interested in our product." He then stated that, hey, they came and contacted me, and they contacted me through Polaris, and we set up a deal. And so I'm now going to play some Hobbit for the next couple of videos. That to me is perfectly acceptable in the sense that he openly disclosed what he was doing and why he was doing that video. However, it also is a bit concerning when X company can come in and talk to the MCN, and the MCN goes, all right, well, yeah, we'll get one of our guys to do that. obviously it was a business deal where they sat down and sorted out.
Well, I mean, obviously, like if they had cast around and nobody in their network wanted to do it, I very much doubt they would have twisted any arms.
Yeah,
but
but again, like you said, if it gets in the case where in that situation Polaris twisted WoW Krendor's arm, then yeah, it would be an issue.
Right, but again, this is all, super hypothetical and like in a day-to-day situation, in a realistic kind of pragmatic view, I can't see that happening too often. But I was specifically bringing up the multi-channel network and advertising and how that all works with regards to the Smite pre-roll that plays before that show, whatever that show is. Like that's likely something that, the people who actually record the show and do the show and write the scripts and read it out have, they'd all
barely
done is like,
over.
Yeah, they would have been like, this episode is brought to you by Smite. Like that's the extent of their involvement with that.
Yeah.
If and it's a big if, and it could happen, it may have already happened, and it probably will happen if it hasn't. But if you get into a situation where a big MCN tells a YouTube channel, if you don't do this, you get no money. Like they threaten them overtly.
I guarantee that's happened. I don't know who it's happened with specifically, right, but I guarantee something like that might have happened.
Right, and so if it gets into that situation, that's a whole nother thing. That's scummy. Like to me, that would be when you start bandying about the word scummy. Like the whole disclosure thing. The thing that I like the best, and I'm not a huge fan of Total Biscuit to begin with, but he is, if nothing else, pretty professional. Because as you stated, he was putting his disclaimers in the written description, and obviously that doesn't show up if the YouTube video is embedded somewhere.
Yeah, so like
or somebody's watching through a player or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of instances where that won't show up. Putting that actually into the video is like the number one example of how people should be doing this kind of disclaimer.
Yeah. So kind of getting this discussion geared towards thematani.com and how we operate as a company / business / whatever the hell we want to call ourselves this week. We, at least in my instance, have had 2 game keys given to me. One of them I did an article on where I didn't let any of my opinion be stated that in any way that was influenced by the developer, in the sense that I was given the beta key basically through tag, and that was basically the end of my transaction with that company. It was like, I just said, hey, if they want to give me a beta key, cool. If not, it's whatever. I'll probably just end up buying the game anyway. And that was Interplanetary, which I did a preview on. Now, there's also another game that we might do, and we're probably going to do coverage on, called Enemy Starfighter. I was in contact with the developer, a lone dude, who we had discussed a potential to do, an audio interview where we would put it out, or some sort of like video where we did interview, or some sort of written interview. And in the process of that, he threw beta keys at us, or early access keys. It's not even in beta yet. And it basically was like, hey, here you go. And to me, at least, now reading the guidelines and understanding a lot of the situation that's been going on, I think it's important that that sort of information is disclosed, especially as we as a company or a website, and my role as video dude is, we're going to start putting out, or at least I want us to start putting out more semi-recreational videos, in the sense that we did a recording the other night of Payday 2. Unfortunately, some of the recordings didn't work out, so we had to scrap it, but we had fun playing Payday 2. If we were to do something like that, and we didn't disclose, hey, we were paid by Overkill to promote this game, that would be a gross misconduct on our part. And I would not be involved with the site after that anyway.
To be clear, with it, and for all, like, I don't know, a couple hundred people that are listening to this,
no, it's just my
to
mom.
To be clear, she just clicks play over and over.
She really loves it.
To be clear, TMC does not and will not do any kind of promotional content. We're probably not good enough to do a very good job of it. But aside from that, we really are. We're trying to be as honest and upfront with people as possible when we cover games. It's our opinions, and it's our opinions and verifiable information that we're passing on to you.
Right.
And so that's not something that we'll ever do.
Right. And part of the thing that makes the site decent in the sense, and you can agree with me on this, is that our advertisements are blatantly clear. There was only one instance of one ad that I thought was that was not very clear, and that was on the ad creators side, trying to mock and mimic our
specifically targeting our layout.
Yeah, targeting our layout and like, oh, this is how you win the Silver Blink thing or whatever it was, and it was mocking or mimicking our header and our font and all that stuff. And we, as a site, saw it and said no and banned that group or service from AdSense in our interactions on the back end.
So let me burst through the wall here as EIC. So
Kool-Aid Man.
Exactly. We will never ever accept money from a company to run a advertorial ever. Everything that you see on the site, as Mark said, is all our writers' individual opinions, edited for clarity and make sure that they can convey themselves in a generally human manner, obviously. With regards to review and preview keys, that is generally expected of a game journalist site. We can start disclosing it if it becomes an issue, but I mean, ultimately, I'm pretty sure that people expect that sort of relationship with a developer. It only becomes really murky if, let's say that we start running giveaways where like developers are just handing us keys to give away, right?
Right. We did that with a couple months ago. We did that with Hearthstone beta keys.
Yeah,
and we didn't explicitly state how we got the key. Now, it could have just been because someone signed up with a whole bunch of different email accounts and that's how they got the key. Cool. Or someone just threw it at us and, that was a private person. We're like, I have this extra beta key and they stated this in our Jabber channel. Here you go. Do something with it.
Yeah. So, to get back on track, the thing is, being given a review copy is not a continuing relationship with a developer. It's basically the developer saying, here you go, do what you want with this, I don't care. I mean, obviously they'd be pretty upset with us if we ran a review that was disparaging of their game, but they gave us a review copy. Tough shit. We're going to run whatever review or preview we happen to run.
So, in the sense of the Friday videos I had been discussing on the back end, which, like I mentioned earlier, with Payday 2, that would be potentially construed as hey, this is a paid advertisement by Overkill. And we, as a site, would need to either decide not to do something like that, which is totally fine. We could always find something else to fill in that content slot, or we would need to explicitly state Overkill did not pay us in any way, shape, or form. This is just us having fun.
No, we would only need to disclose it if they did pay us, or if they did, if we contacted Overkill and said, "Hey, give us a bunch of keys. We're gonna run some videos of us playing your game and having fun on our site or whatever." Then we would need to disclose that relationship. But if we're not doing that, then we don't really need to state that we all bought the keys, because I'm pretty sure all of us bought the game, right? Like,
I hope all of us bought the game.
Yeah, and I mean,
I didn't.
Well, you work for Sony. Okay, so actually, one other thing is
no,
you in real
no,
life.
Mark,
it to me.
It was bought. It was bought
no,
for Mark by somebody.
I know this, but
Yeah.
but I should have probably mentioned this at the start of the podcast. Mark, you actually work for Sony Online Entertainment right now.
Right.
So there was an interesting situation about a year ago where
the whole reason
Dust 514 PlanSide 2 controversy I know you're talking about.
The whole reason, well, one of the reasons that I actually left the editor-in-chief position and I was gone from the site for some time is the concern about conflict of interest. Like, I know for a fact that none of our coverage has ever been skewed by the fact that I got a job at SOE. As soon as I got the job, I stopped writing, like, completely. Basically there's no real worry there. I know that, and I know that the people who know me know that I don't tend to temper my opinions for many people.
That's an understatement.
But what happened is Dust 514 is obviously was not doing so hot even back then.
Shitting the bed.
And that's one way to put it. And almost immediately, so one of our Dust 514 writers was writing about this, and it's not something that I ever touched. I didn't suggest the piece or anything like that. It literally had no sight into it. Goes up on the site, and almost instantly some Dust 514 podcast, which I can't imagine that those exist anymore, basically brought up the fact that I was working at SOE now, so obviously that's why we're trashing Dust, because we want PlanetSide 2 to do well.
And we want to get that big money from SOE as opposed to little old CCP games.
Right, and which is just, like, everything about that statement was just ludicrous. Like, PlanetSide 2 still is not on a PlayStation console. Like, there's no real, like, market competition, not to mention the fact that it, Dust 514 is on the way out. Where we will get into, where there might be some concerns is if Project Legion ever comes about. That will be on PC, obviously. PlanetSide 2 is on PC. They're both going to be shooters, but we don't know how similar they're going to be. If it's anything like Dust, they're still not going to be very similar at all. One's a lobby shooter, one's a big, open map shooter. But that's why, as I've come back to TMC, it's in a purely business role. So I don't have any oversight as to what's being covered. That's all Tegomenis's bag, and that's all Ubistage's bag or Hendrik, whatever we want to call you today. That's all their bag when it comes to video. Like, I'm here to basically make the site some more money so that these knuckleheads can get paid. So, like, I guess that can be our disclaimer. I have nothing to do with anything. Don't stop it. Your game's just terrible if we say it's terrible.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And that's a big thing. Like, I've been a game journalist for a while now. Obviously, I like to crow about it at times, but
you were a games journalist, like a real one?
Yeah.
You worked for some really bad site called Massively or something shit like that.
Yeah, and another really bad site called Joystick, and then I did some freelance works for a bad site called Rock Paper Shotgun, and then I had...
That's a terrible site. No one should ever read that.
I've never even heard of those sites.
Exactly. But anyway...
No, you're not missing out, Mark.
Okay.
I take that sort of game journalist approach when I'm doing my EIC stuff. Obviously, I try to give people stuff that they're interested in. Although I try to balance it out with getting somebody with a skeptical perspective, because I think it's important to have differing viewpoints on something. But yeah, as Mark said, the most he has in regards to having editorial coverage done is he comes to me and says, "Murph, why the fuck don't we have...
Why are there not 5 pieces up?
Yeah,
right
why don't...
Like, why is... Why?
Why don't
There's
we
a
have...
piece about SOE losing their URL for 5 days.
I did do that.
Well, okay, but you pointed it out to us, and we were like, oh, there's a whole bunch of information about this. Okay.
Well, and that's kind of an interesting...
more in the context of, wow, my day is really shitty because we didn't renew our URL. So,
so
you were just venting about your real life work woes.
All my games don't work now.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that's also kind of another interesting thing is when we have people on staff that work for various companies, which we do.
Like we have Darius, who does work with Rockstar Games.
Although he does, it should
and
be
he's very professional in the sense that he does not talk about any fucking thing about his job. It's kind of annoying at times, especially when I was asking him about PC release of GTA 5 every day for about a month.
You didn't need to ask him. We all knew it was coming.
No, I wanted confirmation so I could sell it to someone, and he ruined it.
That's the other thing, and I'll keep this short because I know we're going pretty far off track. But the other thing with people like me and Sean is we're not actually developers. Like, we don't actually control anything about the game. We also don't work for the PR and marketing departments. We're both,
You're both IT.
generally speaking, IT guys. Sean's pretty. He's security. He's not really IT. He's lost on most computers. But the thing is, like, we don't have any kind of real, like, working relationship with our own companies, even in the sense that you might think we do. Like, we show up at the same building as everybody else, but the work that we do is pretty different.
Yeah, it's more maintenance and, like, managing live. It's like live ops stuff for you, and it's security stuff for Sean,
Right.
which is very different from actually making and programming and testing a video game.
Yeah, and oftentimes, like, I'm in a situation where I don't find out stuff about SOE games until it's on Twitter. Like, I don't even know. Like,
How long before? So put this in perspective. How long before the announcement of H1Z1 were you aware of H1Z1 roughly, or is that not something you could actually disclose?
Like the same day as everybody else.
Okay,
is when I found out. So, like, yeah, and
you're basically, what you do at that company is you're in your own little world and you do your own little thing, and no one really pays attention to you.
Right.
Poor Mark just sitting in the back of the large humming server room, just like huddled behind his desk, just like only the blue LEDs of the servers illuminating his poor.
I have a pretty nice office, actually, but I'm actually going to put a hammock in it this week because I get tired at work sometimes.
Because you spend so much time at work.
Yes, that's right.
Why the fuck do you need a hammock in your office? I don't get this.
So I can take a nap.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be napping at work.
Dude,
if you're there for like 12 hours, I'm sorry, I'm gonna take a nap.
Get a better job.
Well, that's a different issue altogether. But no, so the point is, like, yes, I work for SOE. Yes, Darius Johnson works for Rockstar now. That doesn't mean we know anything. And even if we did, we are, usually specifically told not to tell anything. We do sign NDAs, in these jobs, and so there's a pretty clear marker between what we do for our day job and what we do to help out TMC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I mean, Darius isn't even a writer at all. He just does streaming for fun.
He did
basically.
one article where he complained about CCP's monument.
Oh, well, that's fair because he used to work there.
That was an opinion piece, and specifically he stated, "This is my opinion as a former CCP staff member, a friend of VileRat, and a former CSM and a former alliance leader of this game." And basically, I think since then he has not bothered with EVE Online. He actually had I believe he stated that openly that he had his accounts like just terminated. He's just like, I don't want to do anything with this game.
Yep. So getting back to the point of things is the reason why I don't think necessarily that you're going to see too much of this kind of influence between game developers and outlets, whatever that outlet may be, is a question of trust. Like, when you read, so for instance, if you read all of Tegometis' reviews, video game reviews on our site, and he is consistently hyping up games that are just absolute garbage.
Which he does.
And you go out, he does.
Mostly just indie games that we don't even bother to review.
But he's consistently, and I don't mean garbage in a subjective term, but just like, this game doesn't work, but he says it does. Like if he's doing that kind of, if he's exhibiting that kind of behavior, people who read his reviews will catch on. Like, people are generally smart, and they can smell a rat, basically.
Can I just state that he convinced me to buy Air Control, telling me it was a good game. And
yeah, that's exactly what I did.
And I was lied to by Tegometis. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway.
But what I'm saying is there's a question of trust and reputation here. And I think that's specifically something that Total Biscuit said, maybe not in one of those articles, but maybe as a follow-up comment, is, or I could be confusing him with someone. Regardless, it's been said that it's not worth the $2,000 to throw away your reputation
Yeah.
You know, it's not worth $5,000 to throw away your reputation. You're talking about guys who make that much, you know, a week or a month. Like, so to risk their reputation as a trustworthy source of information for that little of a payoff. I mean, it's the constant joke with game journalists. You know, everyone's like, you know, Polygon pocketing that Microsoft money, eh? And yes, Microsoft gave them some money to do a, you know, little documentary thing when they first launched, but I highly doubt they've been given money to, you know, hype up the Xbox One or Microsoft specific titles.
Well,
otherwise they probably wouldn't have just laid off 4 people. Like, there's,
I think,
you know what I mean?
Think
like,
it
there's
becomes an issue of, in the case of Polygon, they have talked about and hyped up certain things and talked in a certain way that was very pro one side. Now, whether or not that had any fiscal or financial influence behind it,
that's the thing. And
it's completely,
and at the end of the day,
you know, up to the jury. You know, the jury's still out on that, but at times it is very suspicious in how certain sites act, like IGN or Polygon. Obviously, we've acted in questionable ways in our own past, as both individuals and as TMC, a site, but we've also...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, there's been articles that have been put out that are very questionable, and like, why did we put this out? What was the purpose of it? In my own opinion, the piece, I think it was called "The House That Tinfoil Hat Built," which was basically a hit piece on EN24, was like, TMC should never have put this out. But I wasn't around at the time, so I couldn't even say that. I just basically voiced my criticism.
But the point is, like, we're not paid to do that. No. Like, that's somebody's opinion, you know, making it through the editorial process. Mm-hmm. Like, there's, you know, the other thing that people fail to understand is that these game sites generally have very small staffs. So, you know, 6 or 7 people. And you work together all the time. You all play video games. Like, you're probably going to be friends. You're probably going to like the same things that the other people like. So, you know, if you see an outlet go crazy over a particular game, and the game ends up, in your opinion, not being that great, well, you know, it's just a little bit of groupthink going on. Like, I don't think anyone's willing to risk throwing away their enterprise or their personal livelihood for the chump change that, the relative chump change that publishers and developers would be able to fork out for them.
I think there are people who would actually
think that would happen,
but they are also the people that most people would not really care about that they did that, or they would openly criticize and basically lambast.
There are like low tier sites. So like whenever I think about game journalist sites, I think like low tier, mid tier, and high tier. High tier being sites that are obviously very popular, read by pretty much everybody. Stuff like Joystick, Polygon. Whether or not they're high tier in quality is up for debate, but those are the sites that have a very visible presence, right? Mid tier sites are sites like us, where we aren't super popular, but we do kind of hit a specific niche, and we are very well known in that niche. Like us or Hardcore Gaming 101, if you've read that site, or so on. And then low tier sites is stuff like PlayStation Underground, or like sites that are specifically devoted to like a specific console. Mid tier sites generally, because they're focused on a specific niche, they will always have a specific sort of viewpoint that comes across in their pieces. Like you can obviously tell on TMC that we have the EVE player viewpoint in virtually all of our pieces, right? Or like, you know, on Hardcore Gaming 101, it's all old school games, right? All games that came out in like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. But
I wonder, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
But when you go to like a high tier site, like Mark was saying, he mentions Total Biscuit said that. I don't know if he did, but I know that Jeff Gerstmann did. And I think Jim Sterling did as well, that, yeah, like, should I take a bribe, or should I completely tank my reputation forever? Like,
the quote by Total Biscuit was, where is it? I had it open. Basically, he referred to it as, he would be morally bankrupting himself.
Yeah. And
right. Like, it's a pretty commonly held thing for a professional in this industry doing what they do.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No one's going to throw away... Think about it. Like,
he's reliant on those views, and people come to give him those views because they trust his opinion. If they lose that trust in him, he goes bankrupt, and he's not going to be happy because he has a wife and kids, and a couple of Koreans on his StarCraft 2 team, he has to look out for and make sure that they have financial stability.
Now, where I will temper it, though, is like a really good example outside of gaming media is just last month. A guy, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, probably not, but Dr. Oz?
Yes, Dr. Oz.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Dr. Oz is a daytime talk host who hosts a medical discussion daytime talk show, very akin to like Oprah and stuff like that.
Right, but it's all like health and medical focused, right? And he's a doctor, so like you try to trust a doctor. Their medical expertise. There's a certain thing. It's kind of like stating that you're a journalist. If you state that you're a doctor and you have a PhD, I have instantly a higher expectation. MDs, whatever. Shut up. There's multiple kinds of doctors. All right, I'm talking about in general. God. Anyways, if you say you're a doctor, you have some type of higher level diploma that indicates that you're an expert in a given field, right? So I instantly have a higher expectation of your expertise, right? So this guy has a talk show on CNN. Is it on CNN?
It's a syndicated TV show, so it's on various TV channels across the country. It's not on just one.
Okay, yeah. But so he has the Dr. Oz show. And he routinely makes a habit of recommending new weight loss like supplements and diets, and this is the miracle pill, the miracle cure for your obesity.
He actually did use, I believe he referred to it as a miracle pill of some sort, and that actually became an issue with
multiple times. Yeah, like
the FTC or I forget which specific division of the U.S. government.
Yeah,
but he got investigated.
FTC, but right, he was actually called to a Senate hearing. And a Senator, Claire McCaskill, started hassling him, saying that he's using his position not just as a doctor, but also as an influential daytime
personality
host
or a well-known person.
Right, a well-known person to recommend these things that have no scientific credibility whatsoever, at all. And I believe that there's some studies that have come out that the things that he's endorsed have been they have negative effects, significant negative effects. And it's kind of the same situation. Now that this is all out there, I'm sure that his numbers are tanking a little bit, but there's always going to be a certain number of the populace that is not well read on these things. I'm sure there's tons of viewers of Yogscast who have no idea about what's going on. They just have no idea about Yog Discovery or any of this crap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they may be mad at Yogscast for, running off with $500,000, but that's a different issue. And, there's still going to always be this segment of the population that doesn't really know. They're not well informed about things. And that's why it's so important for people to have some kind of ethical code and declare these things.
So, you're talking about an ethical code. Do you think it should be something that an MCN should instill across all their channels or subsidiaries as basically a company guideline in that regard, because they're partners and they have contracts with all these people? Do you think that's something that we should, as a community of let's say prominent people on the internet, I don't know what the hell we would call ourselves, should be advocating for? Or do you think it's more of an issue if it should be on a per individual basis?
I think that the owner, whoever the owner is, so these MCNs, they take a lot of different forms, and some of them are just run solely by contract. Some of them do involve ownership of the individual channels beneath them. So whoever the owners are of these outlets should definitely be instituting internal policies to address this issue. No bones about it. If you're doing something, a paid advertisement, basically, you have to let people know.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And it takes literally 10 seconds to say it at the beginning of a video or whatever.
Or if they want to be really fancy, they can animate it, but that's not really necessary.
Yeah, sure. If you want to throw some man hours at it, go ahead. But I would probably just go with the thing that says, this video has been paid for by whatever developer. That's it. Go into your video. Like, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think whoever's in charge of these outlets should absolutely, I think it's on them, whoever the owner is, to ensure that takes place. Now, if the owner, like, if Total Biscuit still retains sole ownership of his channel, then it's on him, and it's on an individual level. If it's something like, I don't really know of a good.
Let's talk about like a
network
Machinima network. Like they have all the subsidiary Machinimas, which are all ran by Machinima as a company.
Yeah. Okay. That's a perfect example. Like, yes, Machinima should be putting out there. Listen, you guys, if you do an advertorial, essentially, you need to put up that disclaimer.
Yeah.
I mean, it hurts nobody. That's the thing that gets me about this, is it hurts nobody. It maintains like an honest front to your viewers, who are the people that are paying your bills for the most part. It's a silly move not to do that. It's just silly.
Yeah. So there's kind of an interesting subtext to this in that a lot of people accuse mainstream outlets like Joystick and Polygon and stuff of basically taking bribes and taking money from developers and stuff, and being completely untrustworthy. And I mean, obviously, I don't think that, because I used to work for them, and I understand how the whole process works. But a lot of these same sort of people are bandying around that YouTube is like the great equalizer, and that it's going to kill traditional journalism, and that people on YouTube, people making YouTube videos like Total Biscuit and Yogscast and PewDiePie and so on, are more trustworthy than mainstream outlets. And I think that's really funny that people actually think that, because if we've seen anything from like user reviews, like if you go to user reviews on Metacritic, those are astroturf to hell. Like half of the positive reviews on a game are most likely from the game company itself, like just making accounts and astroturfing the hell out of it in order to, because people trust, for some reason, people distrust authority. And I mean, obviously there is a reason for distrusting authority, right? But they distrust mainstream stuff, and that sort of leaves them looking at games and things in like a really bad light. Like, saying that you trust some random person on YouTube that has absolutely no professional obligations to you or himself, no professional or ethical obligations, as opposed to like the aforementioned Jeff Gersman, right, or Jim Sterling, these sort of well-known journalists who make their living off of journalism. That to me is really short-sighted. So I think a lot of people don't understand just how easy it is to astroturf on YouTube. You can just fucking throw money at like some guy who has like 5,000 subscribers, right? And he's like, yeah, awesome. I don't have any professional obligation or reputation yet. I don't have to worry about this. But then you go to somebody like that works for Joystick or Polygon, or like even here at TMC, like if somebody offered, I mean, I'm poor as hell, but if somebody offered me money, like $2,000 to like run an advertorial and keep it secret or whatever, I tell them to go fuck off, because that completely tanks my reputation. It makes me unhireable anywhere else. And if you're trying to make it a career in games journalism or games criticism, and you accept that sort of money, you just completely destroy your reputation. Whereas if you're just some random person on YouTube, it doesn't really affect you until you hit like the big time, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've gone fairly over our normal 1 hour allotment of time, which is fine. It was actually an interesting discussion and subject, and something that I think, as a community of video game enthusiasts and content creators, in terms of news and information regarding our medium of choice, or entertainment medium of choice, we should definitely be mindful of. So for more video game news, reviews, guides, and video content, you could always visit us at thematani.com, youtube.com/thematani, and we should, by the time this episode is being done, listened to by you, have our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good day.